Hi, my name's Rachel, and today we're talking about Butcher and Blackbird by Bryn Weaver, a dark romantic comedy about two serial killers, and it's the first in the ruinous love trilogy that has become a TikTok book talk sensation. Since it came out last year in August, it now has a sequel that just came out and then another sequel coming out next year. They're sequel companion books. This is going to be an extremely unpopular opinion, including amongst my own friends, which is fine, but I really did not like this book. I'm going to tell you right off the bat why. There is no plot, no stakes, and maybe I could forgive that, except also had exceptionally poor character work. The two main characters that we get POVs from have only two character traits, and they're not much of anything until about 50% of the way through the book, when the woman main character, Sloan, suddenly her main character trait is that she's insecure, which came out of nowhere. That was just suddenly a scene that the author wanted to write, I guess. And then our main guy character, Rowan, is just horny and Irish and also is a chef. This is deeply disappointing because I don't hate serial killer media. I do enjoy serial killer media when well done. I just reviewed this one, which is about Maud, a octogenarian serial killer. I also really liked the show Dexter because of what it was doing with the internal character work of Dexter and how that interwove with the external plot. Something I've learned about good books is that having a deep understanding of your characters is crucial. Knowing who they are at their core and seeing them make decisions that they would truly make if they were real people, rather than just adjusting your characters every time you have an idea for a scene that you want to write. That is what happened in this book. The place I learned about better character work was from a Skillshare class, and Skillshare is today's sponsor. Specifically, I learned about this from my favorite author, Saba Tahir, in her class in Skillshare that I want to tell you about, called Writing Authentic Fiction: How to Build a Believable Character. She does talk about the difference between plot-driven versus character-driven books. Often, romance falls into the latter category, being more character-focused, but it can be a mix of both, and often my favorite books are a mix of both. And Saba Tahir's books are that balance. But in a character-driven book, we would have a lot of internal conflicts, goals, and motivations. And unfortunately, again, in this book, we just don't. Saba's ideas include sitting down with your main character, almost like in a therapy session, and interviewing them. So I'm going to be taking Saba's advice from her class and using it to critique this book on how we could have written this to be more character-driven. I highly recommend this class, and if you don't know, Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives. They have a huge variety of topics, everything from graphic design, marketing, productivity, cooking, illustration, and writing. They have tons of writing classes. Tons of authors are on their teaching classes, not just Saba, but also I've taken classes from Daniel Jose Older, Jenna Moresi, Kirsten White, Benjamin Percy, and more in order to help me better understand storytelling so that I can better review stories. Skillshare is an online platform. It has stackable lessons that members can learn at their own pace, no matter what your current skill level is. So whether you want to finish that manuscript you've been working on for forever, or you want to learn about video editing, or even how to make at-home real gourmet food like a chef, Skillshare has classes that can take you from beginner to pro, alongside a supportive community that you can chat with and work on your projects with. This summer, turn your I want tos into I made it happen. And you can do this with Skillshare. The first 500 people to click that link down below in my description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So whatever your side hustle is, or whatever your hobby is that you're looking to hone your craft on, get started today by clicking that link below. And thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. Let me give you the synopsis, and then I'm going to tell you how I would have fixed this, because I think that we have some good ideas here, although a little bit of it is a little icky for me. When I am consuming serial killer media, I find I'm in a very gray area and I get the ick very quickly. I really want to know what you're trying to say and how you are justifying what you are saying. And also, are you being in continuity with this very gray morality standard that you're setting? And if you're not, is the character admitting to themselves or having it pointed out to them that their morality is very gray? This does not do that. This does not interrogate anything. I have so many complaints. Butcher and Blackbird by Bryn Weaver, 4.12 on Goodreads. As I said, this took off. This was a sensation on TikTok. It has just absolutely been super well received. It says, every serial killer needs a friend. Every game must have a winner. That would imply that there was a game. They said they were going to do a game and then they just didn't. When a chance encounter sparks an unlikely bond between rival murderers Sloan and Rowan, the two find something elusive: the friendship of a like-minded pitch black soul. From small town West Virginia to upscale California, from downtown Boston to rural Texas, the two hunters collide in an annual game of blood and suffering, one that pits them against the most dangerous monsters in the country. But as their friendship develops into something more, the restless ghosts left in their wake are only a few steps behind, ready to claim more than just their newfound love. Can Rowan and Sloan dig themselves themselves out of a game of graves, or have they finally met their match? So I think first and foremost, if I were to say, could I sit down, could I as the reader, like not just the author, but could I as the reader sit down and pretend to interview these characters in a way that I can interview my favorite characters? Like I could even feel like I could sit down and interview Dexter and give you answers that are in line with Dexter's character because I know him well. I don't feel like I know the characters in this book well because they don't feel like fully realized people, which is often a complaint I have about books. But here it was so necessary to make them fully realized people that it's such a bummer because it's supposed to be so character focused, but it was really just horny. And there's nothing wrong with writing a horny book. I just feel like if we're going to write a horny book, then let it be known that that's what it is. Like when Katie Robert is writing Neon Gods, the reason why Neon Gods gets a 3 from me, like a good rating from me, is because I know what it's doing. It's trying to be horny and like good for them. So I rate based on what I think the book is trying to do and if I think that the book did it well. And again, ratings are super subjective. If you gave this a 5, I'm happy for you. I'm not telling you how to rate your books. Your reading experience is your own. But for me, I wanted to deeply understand these people. We're doing serial killer shit. These people have set a standard for what the morality is, and I want to understand them on a deep level. So the emotional, like hard-hitting beats don't hit because we didn't do the work beforehand to make them hit. You know what we really needed? We needed in this book, not just to have an interview from the author. I think it would have really helped this book if these people were in therapy. You know how in Mr. and Mrs. Smith, they are both in couples therapy together and it's not going well. And then later, after they have worked out all of their issues and insecurities during fighting off a bunch of people, which is funny because it's so bonkers, at the end, they come back together and they are able to talk to each other, but the therapist does not know that these people are assassins. Like, that's funny. And I think that this really needed that. Not couples therapy, though. I think that individual therapy would have been the way to go because it's funny thinking about these serial killers trying to explain to their therapist what their issues are and what their work is without saying what their work is. And this would have given us an opportunity to actually dive into why did Sloan all of a sudden become this insecure person when she had not been an insecure person up to like 50% through the book. Another idea I had was we should have actually made them compete with each other. We really didn't. It's not a, who can kill this guy first kind of thing at all. I think that they shouldn't have just been competing for who could kill these guys first, but also I think what would have made more sense would be later at the end of the book, Rowan, the guy love interest, calls her a psycho and calls her a monster for like the way that she kills people. And like this is an obvious double standard and he's only saying this under duress. But the point is that this hurts her. And I'm like, at what point did we establish that she is insecure about her being this monster to other people? This should have been something we could do the entire time. And not only could they be competing for who kills who first, but also they could have been competing for who's less of a monster. And then also reestablishing that by talking about it individually in their therapy sessions. I think that that would have really hit. Unfortunately, we did not do that. What did we do? A lot of innuendo and then suddenly random, she was super insecure. And then also, yeah, we were killing people, but some of them I felt was kind of not funny and a little bit sickening. Like the way that we were justifying things felt kind of gross. I think it's interesting that we were only killing men. Gee, I wonder why. And then also another big complaint I have before I get into, like going down what happened. Another big complaint I have is that this was not written to just be its own story. This was written to try to get you interested in the next book in this connected trilogy about the next brother and also the one after that because it's featuring Rowan, but then also come to find out his brother is the main character in the next book and then his other brother is the main character in the book after that. So it really was more about establishing, like trying to get the audience to care about those people. And I'm like, you have not done the work to establish why I should care about these people first. And I'm just not horny enough to be like, oh, I can't wait for the next one. And if you are, good. Again, I am happy for you. But I really want a good story. Like if I wanted like, sex scenes, I could just go watch porn. I could just go watch porn. But like if I'm opening a book, I want more than just porn. I want the experience that a book provides very specifically where we are using words to really dive into things that we don't normally think about and talk about. That's really what I wanted out of this and it just did not do it. So with that out of the way, let's get into line by line what happens. Wait, actually before I do want to tell you that the the audiobook is tandem read. It's sort of like listening to a graphic audio production where their lines are being read by them all the time. So if you're in Sloan's POV, she's reading what's happening, but Rowan is still doing his lines. So it's, I think, a quality audiobook. So if you don't care about the same stuff that I care about in a book, if you are fine with all this, if it doesn't bother you and this sounds like you're going to give it a 5, you might want to try the audiobook because it's more of an experience and it made it a lot quicker to read. I think, which is always my experience with, like, if you've ever listened again to graphic audio productions, just having it be very conversational and having it in each character's distinct, like, voice actor's voice makes it a lot easier to read. It goes by a lot faster. So if that's something that, you know what needs a graphic audio production is an Emperor in the Ashes. God damn it, I'm begging. Anyway, let's move on to other Rachel and she'll tell you line by line what happened. Okay. I have to do this with a migraine, so I'm really looking forward to that. We open, and if you're listening to the audiobook, the narrators narrate to you the content and trigger warnings, which says, as much as Butcher and Blackbird is a dark romantic comedy and will hopefully make you laugh through the madness, it's still dark. Please read responsibly. If you have questions about this list, please don't hesitate to contact me, or on my social media platforms. I'm most active on Instagram and TikTok. So the list says eyeballs and eye sockets, amateur surgery, skin ornaments, chainsaws, axes, knives, scalpels, a lot of sharp objects, accidental cannibalism, not so accidental cannibalism, questionable use of a mummified corpse, lobotomized manservant, ill-advised use of kitchen implements, I'm sorry about the cookies and crease ice cream, I'm not really, detailed sex scenes, which include but are not limited to cock warming, rough sex, praise kink, anal, adult toys, choking, spitting, dom-sub interactions, genital piercings. Okay, so I understand that some people think that that's funny. I personally don't find it funny. Humor is subjective. I think that objectively, we should be all able to agree that trigger warnings lists shouldn't be used to make jokes. You can say that you personally use trigger warnings lists as a shopping list, but you need to think of a trigger warnings list like you think of an allergy list. The reason the allergy list exists is for those who need it. If you have no allergies, you can ignore it. If you have an allergy, you cannot ignore it. It is there for safety purposes. It is not there to be there as a way to make jokes. If you're writing a dark comedy and you feel like you haven't put enough jokes in it so that you need to put it in your trigger warnings list, you, number one, probably aren't funny. Number two, you have shown me that you do not know why trigger warnings lists exist. So the only thing on this list that I would say was helpful and does what a trigger warnings list does need to do is the last part where it says detailed sex scenes, except it says but are not limited to. If there is something in your sex scenes that can be triggering, it goes on the trigger warnings list. And now it's not compulsory, it's not mandatory to do a trigger warnings list, but if you're going to do it, actually do it. Don't use a trigger warnings list as an opportunity to make really stupid jokes. Now, subjective that the jokes are stupid to me. Either way, this is not helpful for those who, again, need basically a book allergy list. So I can read basically anything. It's really hard to upset my stomach in a book. But upset stomachs are not the only reason trigger warnings exist. Just like there's a range of things that happen to you when you have an allergy to a food. So for instance, my kid, if he eats certain food, his mouth is itchy. My mom, if she eats almonds, she will go into anaphylaxis very quickly and die if she does not have her EpiPen on her. So there's a range of things that can happen to you when you consume content with things that can trigger you. So for instance, I can get grossed out. I don't really need a trigger warnings list for stuff that grosses me out unless I'm just in a bad place. But typically, I can eat about anything. I mean, I've read To Be Devoured by Sarah Tantlinger, and this has somebody eating a live animal. It's disgusting. It's a great book. But something I cannot read about is somebody on page having a miscarriage that is emotionally devastating them. I can't handle that. Or on page death of a child, particularly boys, because I have 2 boys. And from my miscarriage and NICU trauma, I'm very scared about reading about death of children who remind me of mine. That was at my mental illness lowest, and I cannot be brought back there. So trigger warnings are a way to prevent me from being in a place where I might have a panic attack. I might have an allergy attack, but other people can read miscarriage and be totally fine. So if you're going to do a trigger warnings list, please do it like you would an allergy list. Just state the facts. You don't need to make jokes. You just need to state what's in there and try to be as helpful as possible. Here's a book from author Ray Douglas. Here's Ray Douglas Alice's trigger warnings list. This is great. This is exactly what I'm looking for when I'm looking for a trigger warnings list. I'm looking for just state the facts. Is it explicit? Is it on page or off page? Who is it suffered by? And again, if you don't have allergies, you can just turn the page. You can just skip it. You do not need a trigger warnings list. You don't have any allergies. You're good. Just keep moving. It's there for people who do have allergies. See what I mean? Whereas you can just go into a kitchen and eat anything in there. A person who has celiac disease cannot do that. And that's who those lists are for. They are not there to make you laugh. Even if I were to say, you know, all right, the bottom has things in it like dom-sub interactions. Good to know. That's actually helpful information for people who might need to avoid that. Genital piercings might be something that people need to avoid in a sexual context. No problem. Anal, something some people need to avoid in a sexual context in a book. Good. Ill-advised use of kitchen implements is not a trigger warning. You're making a bad joke. Not so accidental cannibalism. But the one that is really just utterly stupid, and I can't believe it's written first, is eyeballs and eye sockets. You have got to be kidding me. You've got to be more specific than that. If you think that people are going to be triggered, like let's say this isn't a joke. Let's say you're genuinely saying, hey, trigger warning eyeballs. Okay, in order to be helpful, you have to get more specific because typically people interact with eyeballs all day long, right? Unlike something that's, I don't know, what else is on this list? Choking. You're not really interacting with choking very much, right? Okay, so if you're gonna be talking about eyeballs, what is the context that often triggers people in results in regards to eyeballs? Is it eyeballs being touched? Is it eyeballs being harmed? Harm to eyeballs. Really, what you should just put on here is gore, including explicit descriptions of harm to body parts such as, but not limited to, eyeballs. And again, you didn't have to put a trigger warnings list, but you chose to do one and you chose to make a joke out of it, so I'm annoyed, so I'm going to complain about it. Basically, best practice for trigger warnings list is use it as an allergy list and try to be giving as much detail as you possibly can to your readers so that they know, okay, well, this happens to a side character, it's off page, that's not going to bother me. You're doing it for the people who have an allergy, or don't do it at all. Just don't do it. If you're going to do it like this, I recommend just not doing it. This is not helpful. This is a joke. This is ridiculous. Okay, now that I've gotten that complaint out of the way, we open. Chapter 1 is in our main character, woman main character, Sloan's POV. We have two, Sloan and Rowan. In Sloan's POV, it says, being a serial killer who kills serial killers is a great hobby until you're locked in with a body with no air conditioning in the Louisiana summer. I'm not squeamish, but I have standards. Okay, that's kind of funny.
That is without question the funniest story I've ever heard.
The humor goes downhill from here. At present, she is 23 years old. She is a serial killer. She is trying to kill, or she has already successfully killed another serial killer called Albert, also known as the Beast, and she is accidentally locked in his basement. And in strides another serial killer who was there to kill him. His name is Rowan, and he is incredibly hot. They start chatting, and he's like, oh, you seem to be stuck. And she's like, I am stuck, and this body, now full of maggots, these little maggots are crawling out, and they look like little pastas, and they're coming for me. Please let me out of here. And she looks at him, and she's thinking, I want to bite his lip. I shouldn't be thinking about that. Correct. It is very quick into this book how horny we get. We have done nothing. We have established nothing. That's a red flag for me. I wish that I could tell you that this stopped and hit its stride. It didn't. It never hit its stride. It just kept being horny first and nothing second.
I am in incredible pain.
That wasn't even a gentle mic moment. That was just me yelling. So they're chatting. He's like, you know, that's a nice knife. What is it? Where'd you get it? She's like, oh, it's handmade Damascus steel. I got it from Etsy. That's cute. I could deal with that. He figures out she is the orb weaver. That's what the FBI calls her. And he is the butcher. He's a huge fan of her. In chapter 2, in Rowan's POV, he's like, Sloan, she has raven hair and freckles. Oh no, not the freckles. Haven't we done enough freckles? Isn't freckles all freckled out? I'm freckled out. I don't know what the freck is happening with every author writing freckles, but you know what the other thing that they're constantly writing is? Dimples, which she also has. And we're going to hear about freckles and dimples all the live long day. And you know what? I just finished Powerless, so I don't really need another book where the word dimples is used over and over and over. I'm full. So he's like, you should take a shower in this serial killer's house, rinse off, then we'll burn the place down. She comes out of the shower and he's like, she's not wearing a bra. And I'm like, you just met. Relax. Anyways, they burn down this dead guy's house. They go out, they eat some ribs, not human ribs. And her eating ribs makes him say in his head, my cock strains against my pants, which is when I decided this might be the horniest thing I've ever read.
He wrote, the number 8 equal sign, 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 capital D.
And he talks about how she takes eyeballs out of eye sockets, and he's like, yeah, you gouge out people's eyes. And she's like, I don't gouge, I pluck them out like a lady. And I know this was supposed to be funny, comes up time and time again, but personally, this is not my kind of humor. I'm not a fan. He realizes that she is also a fan of his work, and she's like, which is your favorite? He's asking her, like, which is your favorite guy that I've killed? And I start to notice a trend that they are only killing men, and this never gets talked about, but all right. He tells her that the FBI has zero clue about her identity, which, yeah, I'm sure that's info that he's privy to somehow. And they call the FBI fuckwits, and I'm like, the FBI could have been the antagonist in this, and instead we just didn't do an antagonist until the last, I think, 12 pages. I know this is a meet cute, but like, first of all, we are establishing things that just do not make any sense. And also, can we pick up the pace? I need some sort of inciting thing that's going on besides these people being horny. I shouldn't be hearing about cock before plot, and I've already heard about his cock straining against his pants, and we're in chapter 2. I need you to do something for me. He's like, I can't let her leave. I have to think of something. Hey, I know. Have you heard of that guy killing people in national parks? He's got 12 kills so far. What do you say to a friendly competition? And she's like, what kind of competition? 1 year later, in Sloan's POV, she's annoyed with him, and they are planning to meet up for their first competition. And instead of thinking mostly about this, one of the first things she thinks to herself is, I imagine stabbing Rowan in the dick, but I bet it's such a pretty dick. What is wrong with me?
Equal sign, equal sign, equal sign, equal sign, capital D.
And I'm like, I don't know. I am in chapter 3, and I would love for you to work that out in therapy. Actually, can we get you into a therapist's office and start maybe giving out some details that I'm going to need? She has a friend named Lark Montague who gets introduced in chapter 2, and it should have been a warning to me that Lark Montague was, the way that she was introduced was that she was so important. She's going to be she is the next main character in the next book. And I should have known. I was wondering, like, why are we spending so much time learning about Lark for Lark's sake rather than Lark for Sloan's sake, like building out who Sloan is? It does say, though, that Lark is the only one that brings her clarity. She listens, she hears like no one else can. And I was like, oh, could we make this gay? Oh, I beg. She says that relief is getting harder to find with each kill. So I thought that we were going to, work out like, oh, she's really feeling like this is like a compulsive need, and I need more and more thrills in order to get by, but we don't really do that. We just sort of be like, now she's in a competition, and now they're together. The end. But it does say she has a pedo on her table who's gagged and wailing, who she tells to shut up while she's on the phone with Lark, inviting the audience to know that Lark actually knows that Sloan is a serial killer. She cuts the guy on her table, again, it's always a guy, and says, this is the consequences to your actions, Michael, while she has him on a suction machine, and she's, again, doing all of this on the phone with Lark. Rowan's brother, who is the other main character in the next book, I'll get there in a second, sends Sloan and Rowan a location in text, and the game begins. His name is Lachlan, by the way. He says he wants Sloan to win, and my notes at this point, while I was reading, I was typing my notes, and I just said, now it's a family affair, I guess. I don't know. Oh, if only past me knew. And it says, Lachlan has a habit of wrapping a piece of leather around his finger. Why do I need to know that? I don't. I only was told this because I am being set up more for the next book than I am for this book. They also have a younger brother named Fionn, who is a doctor. So Lachlan then explains to Fionn, with the three brothers are talking, Lachlan is explaining to Fionn, the youngest brother, who Sloan is, and Rowan says, keep your fucking name out of her mouth. And I'm like, oh, we're Irish. I just imagine my great-grandma, Edith, who moved here from Ireland, being like horrified at me reading about Irish people in this context. And there's cockworming in it. Great. So then Rowan gets a text from Sloan with a picture of her, and he sees her nails, and he's like, I imagine them wrapping around my cock. And I'm like, we are in chapter 4. Could you please take a Xanax? Please calm down. And then he thinks about his brother, and I'm like, why are we thinking so much about your brother? Why do I need to know about this? He's like, nothing excited Lachlan anymore. And that's when I knew. And that's when I looked it up, and I'm like, oh, the next one must be about the brother. That's why I'm learning more about the brother than I am about Rowan himself. Yeah, I should have known even sooner that this book had been written to set up the next book and make you want to see more of that guy. And it's just basically the same relationship dynamic in the next book, I assume, because it feels like we're just writing the same people over and over. But we haven't even established our main characters in this book yet. So just like, slow down a sec. I've heard about Cox and Eyeballs, but I don't know these people. I know too much about his brother already, and I barely know anything about Rowan. They meet up. She has a book with her. He's like, what does my little Blackbird like to read? And she's like, monster porn, which is unironically what I guessed that she was going to say. She asks, what does your brother do for work? Because again, Lachlan was the one that sent them the location. So like he knew where the serial killer was, and he told Rowan and Sloan, you know, this is where the location is, so you can go find this guy. And she's like, so how does he know? Like, what does he do for work? And he says, oh, he kills people. He kills people for work. And Sloane's like, oh, he must work for the military or some government organization. And I was like, oh, all right. We're just gonna... So we think that some government organization has enough wherewithal to set up killing people, but we don't think that this government organization, such as the FBI, has the wherewithal to be able to figure out who you two dumb fucks are. No? Okay.
Sergeant, that's a nice thought for an idiot to have.
They're staying at some lodging house, and the first night, Sloan goes out and insinuates that it may or may not be a date. And it's very clear that like Rowan is jealous. When she gets back, he's thinking to himself, she could have been alone eating dinner on a feckin' date. And now she's listening to music and I'm mad. And I'm like, you two barely know each other. In fact, I barely know you. So then somehow through the door, he hears buzzing.
Oh. Oh, no.
And he's leaning up against the wall, listening to her use her vibrator and moan his name. And I just want you to remember this because somehow then they think that they are both not into each other. She is using her vibrator, moaning his name, and he's still like, maybe she isn't into me. What? Okay. And again, this is 10 to 15% into the book. We have not done any sort of plot. This is bonkers. I barely know these people again. So he's like, my blood is turning to lava. But then, and he's like, I'm so fucking horny. And then he hears somebody else. And so he goes to investigate, and there's a secret room with a painting with eyeballs cut out of it. Yeah, like fucking Scooby-Doo. And there's a guy watching Sloan masturbate from behind this painting, and he's like beating off. And he's like, I caught the pervert. And I'm like, sir, just a moment of your time, please. You were just listening to her masturbate. You are the pervert. It's a mirror call coming from inside the house. You are the pervert. This is just a secondary pervert. You caught one of your own kin, I fear. You were just listening to her masturbate and getting horny, and this guy is doing the exact same thing, and now you are mad about it. This guy turns out to be the person running the hotel. And the way that the guy talked, who was running the hotel, was like a creepy voice. So it was very obvious to me that the guy, the only other person that was introduced in this situation was the hotel owner. Again, it's like a Scooby-Doo episode. Gee, I wonder who it could be, Daphne? The only other character that was introduced, actually. And also, like, who the fuck else would know about a secret room inside the hotel? Who do you think it is? Oh my God, you guys are outsmarting the FBI. Are ya? Are you sure? Or are you sure that the FBI just feels bad for how stupid you are, just lets you continue on? Oh, look at them. They're so idiotic. Maybe we should just let them keep going. They're only killing other serial killers. What's the harm? Just let them be stupid and we'll just sit back and watch. Like, that makes more sense. So Sloane's like, what the fuck is going on? And Rowan's like, there's a creep inside the wall. And she's like, yeah, you're the creep in the wall. You were in the wall listening to me masturbate. Which, like, yeah, true, but also the hotel owner. Like, who else had cut the eyeballs out of a painting? Turns out that Sloan is a little more smart than Rowan because she's like, I knew it! Meanwhile, he's still lost somehow, has not figured out that the peeping Tom in the wall is also magically the serial killer they were looking for. How fortuitous. She starts chasing the guy down. He's like, what the fuck are you doing? And she's like, what do you think I'm doing? I'm boobing boobily. I'm like, oh, good. The jokes are here. I was looking for them. Couldn't find them.
That is without question the funniest story I've ever heard.
Found him on the page. Excellent. She's like, I'm chasing that motherfucker down. So Francis Ross is the name of this bad guy that they were looking for, and now they're running after him. They're physically fighting each other, which was funny, but then they never do it again. I was hoping for more of that. I was hoping for more like Mr. and Mrs. Smith, like beat the shit out of each other. Do it. Do it. That movie was a little bit of a bisexual awakening for me. I'm sorry. Francis tries to get away in his car. They cause the car to crash. Rowan then catches Sloan by the throat and says, mine. And she's like, okay, he's all yours. And at that point, I knew that this book was just doing very obvious things. Again, we just had a whole Scooby-Doo episode happen. I was like, oh, he's telling her, you're mine. And he's saying, oh, this guy just accidentally hurt you, so I'm going to go kill him. And he does not admit that to her until the end. But I knew. Because again, it's like being an adult and watching Scooby-Doo. He lets her go, chases down Frances, who claims, I was just watching her. And Rowan's like, that woman you were watching, she's mine. Oh my God, I'm so shocked. Here's where this book really lost me though. If you're going to moralize something like peeping Toms being bad, which it is, but only make that morally wrong when an ugly, gross guy with the clip-on tie does it, like Frances, you've lost me. That's lazy. Natalie actually has a great bingo sheet on it, and one of the squares is like, he does crimes, but it's okay because he's hot. I just find that so incredibly lazy. Anyways, so he's beating the shit out of the guy with his fist because he's so manly and doesn't wear a clip-on tie like Francis because he's a hot serial killer. I'm beating on a lump of ruined flesh when it's over. So it's like Negan in The Walking Dead. I delivered destruction with my bare hands, suffering where it was meant to be found. Get therapy. Preferably on the next page, because again, we could work out a lot of this. We could actually do some great character work if you did. He's like, he realizes, he like comes to, realizes like all that he's done, and he calls out her name. She doesn't answer, and then eventually she does answer. She feels bad for him, patches up his hands, and then asks about his family because he has a scar given to him from his dad. Wait, isn't having a scar on Natalie's bingo board? Do I have that right? I think I do. His dad was abusive, so him and his brother Lachlan killed their dad. And their mom died giving birth to their youngest brother. Of course she did. This also happened in Powerless. That's weird. Back at home, no fucking clue how they got away with this murder. She's hanging out with her friend Lark, who is inevitably, again, going to end up with Rowan's brother. And we keep sowing the seeds of that, so we're being set up for it. She tells Lark, I miss Rowan. And she's like, well, why don't you just call him like a normal person? So she decides to go to, she lives in Virginia, and Raleigh, and is Raleigh in Virginia? Raleigh is in North Carolina. So she travels from North Carolina to Boston, Massachusetts. I do know where that is. I actually used to work there. So she goes to Boston, where Rowan has a restaurant, which I had forgotten about completely until this point. She goes in and she sees Lachlan, and she's like, oh, there's the brother. And then she sees the man himself, Irish serial killer semi-boyfriend himself, says Blackbird. She gets embarrassed. I don't know why. All of a sudden, she's like feeling vulnerable. And I thought that she knew he heard her using her vibrator and saying his name because, again, he was on the other side of the wall. So like, I thought they were going to have a conversation about that at some point. They didn't. And now suddenly she's feeling vulnerable that she went to go visit him. He tells her to stay, and she makes an excuse and dips because she got nervous. And at this point, I'm just like begging them to have a normal conversation because I don't know what the holdup is. Don't fake the angst. Actually write it, and actually write a problem. Like actually write like something that they have in common, but also feel like they have to compete over. Again, I think like the morality thing would be great. Like I think that we could have done a thing where it's like, oh, you know, she pretends that she does all of this good stuff over in Raleigh, and he's pretending that he's doing all of this good stuff over in Boston. And she could have walked in and been like, well, I just came to see if you actually were doing as much good as you said you were, since you are the more moral serial killer than I am, according to you. And then they kind of had like a cute, you know, conversation about food. And then he could, you know, I don't know, donate to food pantries or something. Like actually see them trying to offset the harm that they are doing and grappling with that internally and then also together. So then she calls him, and she's back at home, and she's like, did you have a box of orzo delivered to my house? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And this was actually quite cute. Like, I wish that this had been more of, it was just a one small part of the book, and I wish that this had been more of the book. It said that he was like, well, I don't know what you're talking about, but if orzo was delivered to your house and there is also some Parmesan in the bag and also mushrooms, I would start by taking out the Parmesan and grating it and then washing the mushrooms. And she's like, oh my God, you had this food delivered to my house. I can buy my own groceries, you know? And he's like, you didn't stay the other day, and I wish you would have stayed, because if you did, I would have made you something. This is cute. Again, I really wish we would have done more stuff like this throughout the whole thing so far, because we're at like 25, I think, % now. But we were talking about his cock in chapter 2. He's like, I consider you a friend, and you could maybe eventually become my best friend. And she's like, you hardly know me. True, I hardly know the both of you. And he's like, well, I feel like I know the deepest, darkest part of your soul.
I am good at emotion.
And I'm like, well, yeah, you guys have done serial killer stuff together. So I feel like that goes without saying, but what do I know? Don't worry though, he's already thinking about his cock again. He was like, why were you in Boston? She was like, I was there for work. I do these like meetings. And for some reason during these meetings, she has to wear a microphone. He's like, is it one of those whole Britney Spears Madonna microphones? And I was like, what an incredibly millennial reference. And everything she's doing, or he's imagining her doing, because he's not there, is giving him a boner. I imagine her holding a knife. It's so sexy. I imagine her in a Madonna mic. It's so hot. He asked, why are you in the line of work you're in instead of art? And I don't even remember art coming up before, but apparently she likes art. And she's like, there's bad memories where art is concerned. And he's like, yeah, well, I always wanted to be a chef because I was poor and the only thing I could do was cook. And I was like, oh, and that's the end of that character development. Awesome. By the way, turns out he's watching these groceries get delivered at her house and watching her pick the bags up. He's living in Boston. She lives in North Carolina, as we established. He's watching her house from behind a tree every day, and he has groceries delivered to her day after day after day on the phone with her while she's making food, while he's outside of her house.
Kitchen buds.
He's like playing Joe Goldberg fantasy out. And then one day he doesn't send groceries and he watches her go outside and look for them and they're not there. He ends up going back to Boston. They talk about their next competition, but also tentatively they're like, maybe we could cook some time together in Boston. So at their next competition, she's already met the mark and is already like hanging out with him. And he walks up and interrupts her hanging out with this old man. So privately, she's like, we need to have a rule book because it's not fair that you just followed me around until I found them. That feels like cheating. And I'm like, it does feel like cheating. I do wish there were a rule book. That would have been great because then we could have had more stakes, more rules, more cans and can'ts. And it would have maybe actually felt like a competition instead of them just stumbling into killing people together. So then they are both at dinner at the Mark's home, at the serial killer's home. Bright idea. And it's this old man who is kind, but also a serial killer. This guy fed them wine. She wasn't drinking the wine, what Rowan was. And he's obviously like drugged and he lets it slip that he has taken a vow of abstinence and his brother is making fun of him for it because the only person he wants to sleep with is Sloan. Mind you, they've known each other for like 2 years. And she's like, he's drugged. I can't really deal with that right now. And the serial killer brings in some food and feeds it to Rowan. And it's very obvious to her that that is human meat and Rowan is on drugs and so he eats it. And that's the accidental cannibalism. It should have just been listed as cannibalism in the trigger warnings. The accidental part is there to be a joke and we shouldn't be putting jokes in trigger warnings again, I'm just saying. So he does a cannibalism. So then she ties up Thorsten because again, she's not drugs. She overpowers the guy, and Thorsten, the serial killer, she plucks out his eyeballs as she says, and Rowan wakes up and she has to tell him, hey, you ate human meat. I had to dig human rump roast out of your mouth. I'm sure some people find this funny. Personally, this is not my kind of humor, but I can understand why some people would find this funny. She asks if he remembers what he was talking about when he was being fed human meat. And he does remember, but he can tell, or he feels that she would be relieved if he says, I don't remember. So he lies to save her feelings, according to him. And he's like, wow, that really burns that was like a relief for her. I wish we had just taken some time to get to know both of these people because I just feel like we have rushed so quickly in this book into this dynamic that doesn't really hold up under scrutiny. I genuinely really did love that idea of him, like even the stalker part of him being outside of her house and cooking groceries that he had ordered it for her, because there's like a level of consent there where it's like, yeah, it's creepy, but like there's not like a power issue there that makes it icky. But we have not really filled the audience in on who these people are individually and then who they are together and what that dynamic would look like. I don't understand Sloan. All of a sudden it's like she's relieved that he's not saying his feelings, but then again she's also got something going on with like the art background is an issue. And I thought that we would maybe flesh this out pretty hard. We didn't. And again, therapy would have been such an opportune moment for that.
I am good at emotion.
And like, it was obvious to me that she killed a guy. That'll come up later. And we could have had her in therapy dancing around the fact that somebody died and then eventually revealing she killed that guy, but she can't tell her therapist that. So she makes spider webs out of fishing line, I believe, and then leaves them at the crime scene with the eyeballs of her victims, which is why she's called the orb weaver. And as usual, watching her do this, just like watching her do everything else, makes him super horny. And the webs themselves, she uses like pieces of flesh to create a map for the investigators. But of course, these two chuckle fucks are smarter than the investigators. So she tells Thorsten that he reminds her of a man she once knew that used to make promises about getting students into the best art programs. Here's the art teacher, not the art teacher thing, but the professor thing. She says the price was high, but the price that she couldn't pay was Lark. She said, when I found out what that man was doing to Lark, I made a promise that I'd take out every dude just like him. And then she kills the guy. And then there is a guy named David in the house. I was really confused about this. He's in Thorsten's kitchen eating cookies and cream ice cream. I don't know what he was doing there at first. I was really fucking confused. I must have missed something. My notes just say David weird eating ice cream. Perfect. And he seems sort of like a child. He apparently was the servant to Thorsten, the serial killer. When Rowan asked Sloan, how did you find the serial killer? She said that Lachlan sent them to this place and said there's a serial killer here. And the local murders had the same MO from a serial killer in the UK. And all she did was check local housing listed, like sold houses listings. And I was like, pardon? Are you telling me that you two are outsmarting the FBI? Again, that's what I'm supposed to believe. You, random lady with freckles and dimples, just checked which homes were sold to whom in an area with a serial killer and found the cannibal serial killer?
Sergeant, that's a nice thought for an idiot to have.
Seriously? The amount of suspension of disbelief this requires is outrageous. I'm sorry. At least make this smart if you're going to make it quick and horny. Going back to David, he seems very childlike, and he's eating cookies and cream ice cream. So she takes this ice cream from David and she checks the label for some reason. I don't know why. And it says that it includes semen and when the semen was milked. So anyways, Sloan says to Rowan, hey, you should give this guy David a job. You know, he's some guy. He was just stuck here with Thorsten for some reason. And Rowan asked the very reasonable question of, hey, how the fuck am I going to get this dude from California, where they are, to Boston on the other side of the fucking country? And also, isn't that pretty fucking suspicious? And Sloan says he doesn't match the description of any missing person. And I'm like, how would you possibly know that? Aren't there millions of missing people? You can't have gone through them all. Again, the suspension of disbelief is just absolutely bonkers here. So she teaches David how to do dishes.
Oh, goody gumdrops.
Right there in Thorsten's kitchen with the semen cookies and cream ice cream. You know, you remember it from the trigger warnings list. And she says to Rowan, see, he could be a dishwasher for you. And something about this feels like very exploitative and icky. Sloan goes to leave and tells Rowan, hey, by the way, I lied. I wasn't in Boston for a meeting, implying she was just there to see him. And then she says, see you next year, butcher, and leaves. Months later, they're gearing up to meet back up again, and Sloan tells Lark that she's nervous that her and Rowan previously used to talk all the time, send memes, send articles, and have like long FaceTime talks. And I was like, bitch, when? Because I haven't seen y'all do anything since he stopped delivering groceries to your house. Like, when did we, the audience, get this foundation of what makes them like each other? Not just, hey, a hot serial killer who I would like to bone. Wow, he has great face and she has great dimples. But what do you like about each other? What's really drawing you to each other besides we are both serial killers and we are both hot? Why should I care about this? Make me, the reader, understand why I should care. Sure, she makes your dick hard. We established that in chapter 2. Got it. But what about your emotional dick? What about her makes your emotional dick hard? It says that whereas Lark wore Sloan down in boarding school, they were in boarding school together and their relationship got stronger, Rowan's kind of worn her down, but then he's pulled away. He is opening a second restaurant. She's getting ready to go see him and Lark's like, but he's obviously into you. And she says, yeah, but boobs plus murder don't equal a relationship, Lark. And I'm like, yeah, I've been saying that for 12 fucking chapters now? Did the author just catch up with me? Because I could have told you this in chapter 2. She says, no one has stayed around, not even my parents. What if I'm not worth keeping? And my note just says, what do you mean? Are we just seriously introducing this character trait 50% through the book? Yes, we are. We are introducing the fact that Sloan, our main character, suddenly feels like nobody sticks around for her. I'm just learning about the boarding school thing. I'm just learning that her parents pulled away from her and they don't care. I don't know anything else about the parents. Zilch, nada. I don't know where they are, who they are, if they are alive. I don't know. I don't know anything. What I do know is that Sloan only has Lark and now would really like to also have Rowan, but now I'm insecure and also my parents pulled away. I'm gonna need you to dig deeper. I'm gonna need you to give me a little more. Instead, she just gets quite suddenly super insecure. What if this is all in my head? What if he's not into me? What if I'm unlovable? Bitch, what? What? He was watching you masturbate through a wall. Through a wall. What, did you think you hallucinated that? He's also been flirting with you for 12 chapters now, staring at your tits. I mean, what the hell? He delivered groceries to your home, bitch, and stayed on the phone with you, teaching you to cook gourmet shit. You are either best friends or he's in love with you. And he also has literally done nothing but innuendo in an Irish accent for 12 fucking chapters. Be absolutely serious. I am begging you. Instead of just writing real stakes, we wrote, what if he's not that into me? What? Now, if he had said stuff that were like, could be taken either way, then certainly. But he said he was abstinent because he only wants to be with you. And his brother makes fun of him for it. My good bitch, are you well? And Lark is like, he literally invited you. Rowan comes to get her. And it says, his eyes are taking over her, or raking over her, drinking her in. And then it goes on to describe every facet of this woman's body, specifically listing what kind of perfume she's wearing, and also says that his eyes specifically linger on her breasts. Again, for like the third, fourth time probably. Sure, this is typical for him, but that's exactly why I don't know why we just had that scene of, he's just not that into me. This isn't development of anything. I know she has great tits. I have been told since chapter 2. Oh my god, it's like that thing from the Swan Princess.
You're beautiful.
Thank you. But what else?
What else?
Is beauty all that matters to you?
What else is there?
You look gorgeous, Blackbird. I'm so happy you're here. And he's blushing. Yeah, bitch, you're so right. This dude is not into you at all. He thinks you're repulsive, actually. You for sure misread the situation. Most definitely. Again, we are 50% in now, and it just occurred to me, apparently, in my notes, past Rachel said, I just now realized this has no overarching plot, not even a whisper. And we could have had a serial killer that's really elusive, a serial killer that keeps sending them notes saying, come get me, Butcher and Blackbird. But no overarching plot here, just randomly deciding to do, she doesn't know if he likes her or not. So he's flirting with her, and she listens to him say he somehow knows that her car is 3 weeks overdue for an oil change, calls him a stalker, and then goes back to thinking that it's all in her head again. And she's like, I must be reading into the gestures. I am done. I hate this. These insecurities came out of nowhere, and they make no fucking sense. They're completely unfounded.
I am in incredible pain.
Don't worry though, we get an update on David, the dishwashing guy who doesn't speak. From the trigger warnings list, it said lobotomized manservant. That's referring to David. How is that a trigger warning? I don't know. He now lives in a group home and is very reliable about the dishes. Lachlan, remember the brother, despite being better than the FBI at playing Guess Who regarding who's the serial killers across the United States, cannot find where David came from. So he's just gonna stay doing the dishes for Rowan. Cool! So then he flirts more, they talk more, they're at a dance, they're at a whole event, by the way. And he says, by the way, that guy over there is a serial killer and I thought we could take him out, but like together. And she was like, oh, I was right. He's not into me. It's all been in my head.
Sergeant, that's a nice thought for an idiot to have.
Bitch, what are you talking about? You and him have killed together multiple times now, flirting in the process, and now you think it's not mutual? This is so stupid and contrived. I hate it here. She's like, I'm not dressed for the occasion. He's like, I'll do the messy stuff. My heart is crinkling like a paper crushed in a fish. What? Oh, my mouth. My heart is crinkling like paper crushed in a fist. Yes, as is my will to live. This is so stupid. At no point do I think these two cardboard cutouts have a shot at not working this out. This is so contrived and I am bored. She's like upset and he says, I thought when I said that we could have some fun tonight, you would know what I meant by real fun. And she said, no. And he says, holy shit, Sloan, you're really here. And he's about to kiss her, and then the phone rings. Oh, who could have predicted such a thing? Something at the restaurant exploded, and instead of just being like, let me put someone else on this so we can talk about this, he's like, you stay here amongst strangers at this event and have fun. And then he leaves, which feels very out of character for him, but okay. She goes back to her hotel, checks out in the morning. He texts her in the morning and says, I miss you already. Sure. But he's not into you or anything. You're right. She asks, are we still on for August to kill another dude? And he says, I'd blow up my restaurant myself before missing it. Sure you would. So they meet back up in August for their competition, which is absolutely not and has never been a competition. They're walking up to the home of the guy who is the serial killer. And it's like somewhere in the middle of fucking nowhere with like John Deere tractors and shit. They listen to this guy in his home kill another guy with a chainsaw. Inside the house, they find a mummified old woman. This is where the book went from, it was already sitting at a 2. I wasn't having a good time. This whole thing that's about to happen is where the book went from a 2 to a 1. They find a mummified old woman who they assume is his mother, the serial killer's mother. And Sloan says, I bet you were such a bitch, because it's a trend that serial killers have abusive moms. And I'm like, that feels super fucking insensitive. You have just, you could have instead found this woman's diary. You could have instead played tapes of her being like, you're such a piece of shit, son. Instead, they were just like, there's a mummified old woman. I bet she was a terrible person. And then they're going to do, again, the trigger warnings list, terrible things with her corpse. She finds a whole room with monitors because this guy has fucking cameras everywhere. It's just rigged up with cameras. And on one monitor, she sees Rowan being stalked by the serial killer, whose name is Harvey, by the way, Harvey Mead. And she runs out of the room to go save Rowan, and somehow this guy has fucking teleported, not literally, but certainly in the book, because I don't know how he got from stalking Rowan to being in front of the door, but he kicks her face in with his boot. Harvey is described as balding with pockmarked skin and rotting teeth because, again, if you forgot, only the bad serial killers are ugly and only the good serial killers are hot. Sure, he dumps her in his cellar. Oh man, this whole fucking thing is just trash. He dumps her in his cellar where another woman is, who is crying and half naked, saying, he killed Adam. You know, the guy they listened to him kill and didn't do anything about. And she's like, she's crying, and I tell her I know what it's like to lose someone you love. And I'm like, okay, bitch, now explain why you didn't even attempt to save that guy. You knew this guy was a serial killer. Instead of tipping off the cops, you prioritized your competition with another serial killer. So please don't write this scene now as if I'm supposed to believe that this serial killer woman is empathizing with a woman who is not a serial killer and just listened to her loved one die.
That makes me feel sad. I'm sad.
I'm tired. And of course, her and Rowan are not only the only hot serial killers, they're the only smart serial killers. Because Harvey dumped her in his cellar, fully clothed, with her cell phone still in her pocket. So she just ring-a-ding calls Rowan, and he's like, hold tight, love. I'm extremely confused because what we were told was that Harvey was sneaking up on Rowan, and that's why she had to run out of that room full of computer screens, but then she ran into Harvey's boot. How did she get there when she was over there? Rowan gets to her and the other woman, whose name is Autumn. Sloan gives Autumn her shirt. So now Sloan is shirtless. In the process of being thrown into the cellar, she, what's it called when it pops out of socket? Her shoulder blade. He calls Sloan by her real name. She calls Rowan by his real name. And I'm like, why didn't y'all use fake name? In case there were other people there, which there is. And now they can identify you. And the cops who helped this woman, Autumn, are going to be looking for a woman named Sloan and a man named Rowan. This is amateur hour, and I'm supposed to believe that you two dumb fucks are outsmarting the FBI? Okay, so instead of letting this woman go, right, they leave her in the cellar. Why? I don't know. They leave her in the cellar. He's like, we'll come back when it's done. She's screaming and crying, and he says to this victim of kidnapping who just listened to her boyfriend die, Rowan says, stay the fuck here and be quiet. They then run off and are hiding behind a barn, some shit, or in a barn. He assesses her injuries. I have no idea why they ran off. It's not like they're making a plan. She has a dislocated shoulder, and of course she's shirtless, because being the empathetic, caring person that she is, she gave her shirt to Autumn, the victim in the basement that they abandoned. I would love for you to guess what occurs next. Is it A, they decide to cut their losses and run and turn Harvey in by calling the police? B, they decide to free the traumatized woman they just abandoned in the basement and let her get revenge on Harvey. Therefore, their hands are clean, and she isn't likely to snitch on them. C, do they kill the guy themselves by sneaking up on him from their position in or behind the barn? Or D, do they make out? I will give you a moment. It's D, they decide to make out. It says that his eyes are soldered to hers, to her lips, which is quite possibly the worst way to describe that they are figuratively locked onto her mouth. He says, Sloan, I can't lose you. And she says, then you better kiss me. I just want to remind you where they are. Where are they right now? Hiding behind a barn with a serial killer on the loose, and they just left the victim in the cellar. Alternative idea to you kissing right now, get that fucking victim out of the basement. You were just in a hurry to run from that basement. left her in it, and now you have time for this? Please be serious. 911, what's your emergency? Hi, my name's Autumn and I'm trapped in a basement and my boyfriend Adam is dead and the serial killer who killed him is on the loose and the other two serial killers who were supposed to be murdering him are smooching behind the barn. One of them yelled at me. I don't even know why.
That is without question the funniest story I've ever heard.
This is not a silly, goofy time. I am losing what few brain cells I have left. You are witnessing brain cell murder. They are serial killers, all right, of my brain cells. Everything transforms with a kiss. Rowan's lips are soft, but the kiss is firm. You know what else is firm? The chainsaw that's gonna kill that woman that you just abandoned in the cellar. Also firm is Rowan's dick, but we've known that since chapter 2. I hate this book. Now, they're making out, tongues are colliding, and it says it's striking an inferno within her. Meanwhile, I couldn't be less horny because I'm over here worried about the woman in the basement. Again, if you are going to give me serial killers, you have to give me what their code is, how they justify the things that they do. Why are they making out right now when it was so pivotal to run from that basement and leave that woman behind? Were they setting up a trap? No. Do they have a plan? No. And mind you, this woman Sloan allegedly only became a serial killer to get back at bad men who attack people the way that her best friend was attacked. I think that got mentioned one time, but that's not what we're doing anymore. Suddenly, we're fine to leave a woman in the basement who is no different in value than Lark, her best friend. But no, we left that woman and let Rowan yell at her saying, shut the fuck up, we'll come back, to go make out behind the barn. Where's the consistency? I don't understand these people. If you're gonna write serial killers, you better make me understand them. That's half the fun of reading serial killer media, is getting to safely explore what the inside of their brain looks like without actually giving a lot of stage time to real serial killers who really kill people, and therefore platforming the people who are killing people over the victims of that killing. Here, we could do that safely, but we're just not doing it, and we're not writing moral grayness. We're writing very black and white morality, except we're changing how these people view their morals from scene to scene based on what we want to do. Right now, we want to kiss. I don't understand. I forget all about who we are, where we are, why we're here. God, I wish that were me. I wish I could forget, then I could actually enjoy this scene, but I can't because the context of this kiss does not make any sense. And then a sudden scream interrupts them. Gee, I wonder who that could be. They hear a chainsaw sputter to life. Now see, this had to have been written in a hurry and edited never, because like of fucking course logic dictates that the course of action for the other serial killer, remember the ugly one, in this scenario would try to go find Rowan. He knows that there are people in his house, so he's gonna go try to find the other one. He already threw one in his cellar, so he's gonna try to find the other person and try to put them in the cellar as well. It would have made way more sense for Rowan to simply wait and hide somewhere for this serial killer to come back, have unlocked everything so that all three of them can attack him. But no, they ran off to do God knows what, ended up suddenly making out, who could have guessed? And then after making out behind a barn with her dislocated shoulder, meanwhile, then they finally get interrupted by that same victim that they just ran away from because the serial killer came back to that exact location. This is so stupid. So now said kidnapping victim is screaming, and the serial killer they didn't go attack or make a plan to get, even though that's the whole purpose for them being there, is wielding a fucking chainsaw. Sure, all of this makes perfect sense. I'm so glad I spent my hard-earned money on this fucking audiobook. So Rowan picks up his axe and she says, what are you doing? And I'm like, bitch, what do you think? He's gonna do the thing that you guys came here to do. What a stupid fucking question, but I shouldn't be surprised at this point, because clearly all brain cells have left the fucking building, and yet I'm still supposed to believe that these two chucklefucks are outsmarting the fucking FBI. He says, I'm gonna get revenge for him hurting my girl, and at this point, we're supposed to think how sweet. He called her his girl, and all I can think is, I'm concerned that he's with somebody who has completely lost the capacity to critically think whatsoever. And maybe that's something we should deal with before we deal with this new blossoming relationship. I fear she may be concussed, and that's why she's asking such stupid questions. Let's get her checked out by a medical professional before we deal with the cute relationship change status. Oh wait, she is going to get checked out by a medical professional. It's going to be his other brother. Great. Instead, what happens is a, quote, choreography of revenge, which is just fantastic. He swings the axe upwards. Ow, fucking A. My computer, ow. He attacks Harvey, but of course, being the Joker and Harley Quinn knockoff that they are, she's like, will you promise me a turn? Well, don't forget, you promised me a turn. Don't forget, Puddin'. Autumn has taken off. Remember the victim in the cellar that they abandoned? she's taken off, and she's like, she'll find help eventually if she keeps going down that road. But once people find out, we won't have long, so we don't have much time to play. And I was like, why didn't you just fucking let her go to begin with? Okay. And of course, I can't actually ask the characters that because the characters don't exist. This was just written in a way that doesn't make any fucking sense. So my question is, where's the editor? Where was the developmental editor? Okay. And I guess if we had to make an assumption on why it was written this way, not so much why it was edited this way, I don't know, but we were just so excited to get to the part where they smooched that we didn't think about anything else. The logistics? Who cares, right? Doesn't have to make sense, just has to be horny, which is a real shame because as a reader, I can't think of anything but the logistics because I'm trying to immerse myself. So then here comes the part where I wanted to give the book a 0. Sloan has what she thinks is the most hilarious and brilliant idea where she gets Harvey's dead mother's corpse, her mummified corpse, lays it in his lap and starts slithering it up his body as he's like half conscious and Rowan's holding him down. And again, this is Sloan operating under the assumption that Harvey's mom was also a bad person, which she has absolutely no proof of. So this is just her being extremely disrespectful to a corpse of a woman who she just assumed was a bad person. This is really where the book has gone downhill and just gone off the rails because none of this makes any sense. We are operating on assumptions, we're operating on stupidity, we're operating on spit and a prayer and a dry glue stick in order to hold this book together. So she imitates an old woman's voice and says, "You've been a terribly bad boy, Harvey." So Sloan in her old woman voice says, "I think you deserve to be punished." And even Rowan says, "This is pretty dark." And I'm like, yeah, no shit. But again, it's also stupid. You're operating under the assumption that this woman was awful and deserves to have her corpse handled like this. And again, I'm only working with the moral framework that these two have offered up. And I'm looking over like what they have established as their moral framework previously. And it's just it doesn't fit. They are supposed to only be shitty to people that they have proof or reason to think are shitty. But also, is being a shitty mom reason to have your corpse handled like this? I don't get it. And this is supposed to be funny to the reader. I guess I just have a different idea of funny, but also it's just kind of gross and awful. So using her serial killer or her old woman voice, she's like, "Hold on, son, I want to crawl inside that head and look around." And then he has a heart attack and dies. She says, "This is so uncool, Harvey." And Rowan's like, "You literally scared him to death." Anyways, they set the house on fire and they leave. He resets her shoulder. They're traveling in a car together. He realizes she has a nipple piercing. It wasn't there before when he last saw her titties under her shirt. And my thoughts are, why am I supposed to care about any of this? He says, "That wasn't there before because when we met, my thoughts were punctuated by no bra, no bra, no bra." Oh my God, is the nipple piercing supposed to be character development? Because it's not. And his cock goes hard as fucking stone.
===, capital D.
So she gives him sass and he thinks, "I'm gonna have so much fun punishing her later." Oh, are you going to make her read this? It feels like punishment. Not sure what crime I've committed. They go to his brother Fion's house, his youngest brother, because again, he's a doctor. There is a woman there on crutches who, when Rowan walks into the house, she's like, "Who the fuck are you?" She says that Fion's on his way. She asks, "Okay, well, who's that lady?" Sloan says, "Oh, I'm Sloan, and this is Rowan. He's my man guy," which was actually kind of funny. And it would have been funnier if that whole scene previously with the old woman hadn't just happened. I might have laughed. And she's like, "Oh, you're Rowan. I want to know why your nickname was Shit Flicker." Which this is supposed to be like teehee, funny, family shit. Fion said that, your nickname is Shit Flicker. I don't want to know why his nickname was Shit Flicker, personally. I don't care. So then they start flirting like absolute just ravenous people. He's like, "You're lucky you're injured, or I'd bend you over my knee and smack that perfect ass until it glows." Cool. "And then I'd teach you a lesson about wanting to come so badly you'd beg for it." Whoa. Honestly, this isn't bothering me. It's just that I don't like these people anymore. I barely know them, and what I do know, I don't like. And I'm actually now just begging y'all to bone and get it over with, so maybe once it's done, a plot will just sneak up on me. Surprise! The good part's coming. That's what I was hoping. To be young and naive as I was when I was at this part of the book, because nothing's coming. I mean, they will, but a plot won't. He leaves the room and goes to drink his brother's booze, which, God, I wish he'd share with me. And then Rose, the girl on crutches, who is going to be Fion's love interest inevitably in the third companion book in this series, is sitting alone at a table looking at her tarot cards. And he's like, "So why are you staying with my brother?" "Oh, gee, I don't know. Maybe it's because this aggressively straight series has, you know, you, a man with 2 brothers, so naturally there needs to be a woman to be the companion to each brother. So we can duplicate the same scenario over and over. And we're going to introduce all those scenarios in book 1, hoping to maximize the potential of readers reading this dynamic over and over and somehow giving a shit. Hey, remember that other brother? Here's a girl for him to have banter and brooding over too. I'm so bored. This is so lazy and unnatural. Rose gets to deliver the news that there's only one bed for these 2 chuckle fucks to share naturally. Not her, Rowan and Sloan. Not her. She's not getting fucked until the 3rd book, apparently, I guess. One can assume. Again, it's like Scooby-Doo in here. The next chapter starts in Sloan's POV, and she's having a flashback/dream where she's laying her head in Lark's lap while Lark, her best friend, sings. And she's like, I thought I would feel regret, but I don't. And Lark says, I'll tell my parents what you did for me and you can come home with me. And on the floor is the dead body of the artistic director at the boarding school, who was mentioned one time previously to have been taking advantage of Lark. That's all we're ever going to get from this. We're never going to know anymore. That's it. That's all. I know you're starving for information. Me too. Rowan wakes her up, and then we learn that Fiona already came home and reset her shoulder correctly or whatever. He runs her a bath, and he's so horny, he's like in pain at this point. And he's like, I've been wanting you for 4 years. I'm begging you, just get in the bath. And she's like, 4 years? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, you weren't there 4 years ago when he was locking eyes with your tits? Because I was there, Gandalf. And he's like, you already know, I told you at Thurston's. No shit. He did tell her at Thurston's. He did tell her at that serial killer's house. And she's like, oh, you remember? Yeah, yep. Oh my God, I'm losing it. Personally, I've never been so high that I made up staying abstinent for one guy for years so hard that my brother made fun of me for it. I've never made anything up like that when I'm high. Personally, I don't know about y'all. And here's the thing, he could have lied to her about other stuff. They both could have. For the past 4 years, there was an opportunity to do all of this way differently and more interestingly, so that they had to come clean about certain things that weren't so blatantly obvious to everybody else.
Stop it, both of you. Now you've done it. You've made me turn my chair.
I would have liked this dynamic more if it had been for the 2 of them the past 4 years, again, dealing with this very gray morality that they're living in and trying to convince both themselves and each other that they're somehow the better serial killer, that they are more normal than the other, that they are less dark than the other, that they are not as much of a monster as the people they kill, but also not as much of a monster as the other person in this dynamic. To try to convince themselves they could, talk up all this stuff that they do and they could just lie about it. I volunteer. Oh yeah, well I volunteer too. Make up significant others. See, I'm so normal. Go out of your fucking way to make and keep up a charade that you're less fucked up than the other person. That's interesting. And then finally come clean to each other and be like, I'm a liar. Fuck, I'm a liar too. I'm actually a shit human. Huh, me too. Also, I'm in love with you. Oh my God, same. And then ta-da, they can be shit together. But no, we randomly threw in her being insecure at 50% and wondering if this guy who's been flirting with her for 4 years is into her. Great. She's like begging him to let her in. And I have zero idea what the holdup is because again, there's absolutely no stakes. And after they fuck, what's gonna happen? There's several chapters left. Nothing is preventing these people from being together. So she kisses him. He's being tentative about kissing her back. So she drags his hand all over her, and apparently she has both nipples pierced and a bunch of piercings in her downstairs region, just like genital piercings out the wazoo, which made me fucking wince, I won't lie to you, but if you have those, good for you, you are truly a bitch of steel. So it says she's unlocked the devil with him, of course, and he's carrying her to bed saying, I'm no fucking angel, Sloan, demands she get on the bed and spread her legs and said, I'm done running around this, Sloan. I've wanted you for 4 fucking years, and you're going to show me what I've been missing.
I am in incredible pain.
So he just keeps telling her to, like, spread her legs wider and wider and wider. So she basically at, like, a straight angle at this point. His attention settles in the apex of my thighs. Hold, please. Hold. See, this is the part where I paused the book and said, okay, if we're starting this scene with apex of my thighs, we're making bingo. So I made spicy scene bingo. Let's see if I get any bingos. He first asked her about her clit piercing and she said, I got it when I was 18. I think it helped with orgasming. He asked, you couldn't orgasm before? And it says, I don't know. I didn't have the right situation up until that point, but I think it gave me more control. And I wasn't sure what that meant. So I'm hoping somebody can explain it to me. She also has her labia pierced and says it feels like armor. I just imagine getting it stuck. Like if you wear lace and that like gets stuck, She also has a third piercing down there. I don't know or care where it is, but she says that she thought a partner might like it. Thoughtful. He asks if they did, and she says she hasn't been with anybody since she got it. She got it after she met him. Of course. And honestly, there was no reason to think she had a partner at any time in the last, since they've met. But okay. And he asks her, why not? As in, why haven't you been with anybody? And I'm like, oh, good. More stupid questions. Perfect. Time to waste more time. She doesn't want to say. So of course his answer is, you fucking tell me so you know when I ruin you for all other men that it's what you asked for. I should have put, I'm going to ruin you for other men on the bingo. Damn it. And you know what? It's not that it's bad. It's just that it's sad that I can predict this stuff. Like, I just wish the authors would come up with new stuff. Some of this isn't cringy. It's the same as every other book with smut in it. And I'm starting to feel like y'all are just writing the same scenes. You're just mad-libbing your way to a sex scene. And I'm just a little disappointed in the lack of, uniqueness. I honestly should have put, give me one more on the bingo card, because like acid reflux, I can feel it coming. Speaking of coming, he's between her thighs and it says every exhalation is warming her entrance. Got one. They pick a safe word and it's chainsaw. I'm just glad a safe word got asked for, honestly. No complaints here. It says, now be a good girl and go find something to grab onto. That's 2. With one slow lick over her center, he says, I'm about to destroy you. Too late, buddy. My brain cells are fried. What more can be done to them? I beg you to tell me. He says she's about to discover I'm the devil she never knew she needed. I think she's aware. You kill people. Also, is the dick really that big? I doubt it. He says, I'm already mad with the need to sink into her tight heat, and damn it, I cannot believe that I forgot to put both those words, tight and heat, on the bingo card. That would have been a double whammy. She's like, wait, won't Fion and Rose hear us considering we are in your brother's house? And he's like, yeah, good. We can show Fion how it's done. I wouldn't be caught dead having sex in my brother's house, personally. She's not being vocal enough for him. So he's like, I'll give you this one, but by the end of the night, you'll be screaming my name. That's a fucking promise. He calls her vagina her channel, which I gotta hand it to Bryn Weaver. That's a new one even for me. He says, one more thing, love, keep your eyes on me. And again, I cannot believe I missed this many bingo squares. I know better. But then he calls her such a good girl. And do I get points for that being in here twice? No, let's stick with what I have. Her eyes stay fused to me as I trace the tip of my glistening finger over her lips. That's 3, motherfucker. And it's bingo. You're welcome. You're all welcome. I know. Don't clap. Please, please hold the applause. I wanted to clear the board, but unfortunately we don't. I am good though. The erection springs out as they always do, and she calls it beautiful. He asks, are you on contraception? She says, yes, I have an IUD. I have no complaints here. I appreciate making sure that we are using birth control. Throwing in safe sex to a sex scene is something that I think we should do more often. And then, of course, the dick nudges at her entrance. There's that old bingo square again. He says, I'm going to fucking fill you until you're overflowing with my cum. That's impossible, I fear. I don't think you can make that much semen, my guy. He's taking too long, of course, and she tells him to destroy her. Again, I'm sorry, the dick cannot be that big. But of course, he tells her to look down and says, watch how well you take me. And I cannot take this seriously because I'm sorry, it's too dramatic. If a man said that to me while in bed, he'd leave because I would laugh in his face. I'm sorry. He bottoms out, his words, and says, that's my girl, which I feel like counts as a good girl, but we'll just let it go. It's whatever. The next part is so ridiculous. I'm going to play it for you so that we can experience this nonsense together.
Oh, goody gumdrops.
Are you ready?
She's everywhere, in every drop of my blood, in every spark of thought, and I want to fucking destroy her for it, to shatter her just like she's broken me, because she brings me to my fucking knees. I want to ruin her so that she's mine, my beautiful disaster, my wild creature, my goddess of chaos.
Wow, I am so glad that we shared that together. She finishes, and so does he, and of course another Miss Bingo Square. It says that her vagina milks his dick. Great. So then, this is new for me. He goes down on her, sucks up everything that's down there, and then climbs up her and spits it in her mouth. I gotta hand it to Bryn Weaver. I didn't see that coming. He calls it an appetizer, and now it's time for a fucking feast. Next chapter, they've fallen asleep with his dick in her, which apparently is called cockwarming. I didn't know there was a term for that. As you do, just cockwarming, just couple things. And she can not sleep because she wants him because, again, his dick is literally in there. Despite the feast, a bitch is not full. It's not like I haven't had good sex before, but nothing even close to what it was with Rowan. Ha! Bingo square. It's a bingo square. You're goddamn right. She's so horny she can't handle it, which has pretty much been the byline of this entire book, so she decides to flick the bean while his dick is still in her. Gee, I wonder if he's going to figure it out. Who could guess how this is going to end? So he wakes up, of course, and he's like, what do we have here? So he leaves the bed to go get her dildo out of her backpack that for some reason she brought with her on this journey. And now that his back is turned, she's seen that he has a back tattoo. It's wings, it's raven's wings that she drew while she was at his restaurant sitting at a table. I wonder who that's for. He tells her to get on her knees, and apparently her pussy is dripping, which should have been a bingo square. So he squeezes out the lube and it says it drips down her pleated hole. I wanted to no longer be able to comprehend words at that point. I tell you what. So he's in her back door while the dildo's up front. Cool, cool, cool. And he's like, any guesses why I got the tattoo? I don't know about you, but when I'm double booked, I'm not thinking about tattoos, but I guess that's just me. And she's like, is it because you like me? And then for several paragraphs, he explains how he more than just likes her, but they're not saying love yet. And he's like, and you more than just like me too. Then he asks her, why did you stay after I killed Francis? Remember the guy that he choked her and said mine, and then he ran after and beat him into a meat tornado? What? And she says something along the lines of, the way he said her name after he killed that guy made it sound like he needed her. But sure, somehow after that, you didn't think this guy was into you. It makes sense, y'all. It makes total sense. He's like, I said you were mine when I went to kill this guy. And I'm like, this is so lazy. Oh my God, it was so obvious. And she's like, maybe he's been sure about us all along. Oh, who could have guessed that? Whew, shocked. Here's my question, though. Again, there is no plot. There is no stakes. There is no antagonist. Nothing's been preventing these people from being together. There is no outside issue that they have to deal with after they're done here. There's no conflict. And they were never in a fucking competition. So now what? Because we're not done. We have 6 chapters left of this 26 chapter book, and they've already fucked. What now? Anyways, he says he's taking Sloan home to Boston. In talking to her best friend Lark, Lark says that Rowan is ready to cut people up for her, and it's so Keanu-mantic. Sloan says that's not a word, and Keanu Reeves doesn't do that. Finally, she and I are on the same page about something. It's been 3 weeks since all that sex, and she's packed up all of her shit from North Carolina, including her kill room, moved out of Raleigh and into Boston to work from home and live with him. And they have a cat, and I cannot believe the cat has gotten no page time until now. That's a crime. They have dinner with Lark, and after it says, Rowan gives me a wink as if this is all his grand plan to lure Lark here. And I'm like, wow, beat me over the head with what's coming in the next book. I beg. I did not get it spoon-fed to me this whole time. I need some more. He surprises her with her new restaurant, with his new restaurant being called Butcher and Blackbird, which is probably a bad idea considering that his name is the Butcher of Boston. But anyway, she loves it and tells him that she loves him, and he reciprocates, shocking nobody. And then they have sex while he's feeding her creme brulee.
Kitchen buds.
And then they're fucking on a table in front of a window in the restaurant, not caring if the whole of Boston sees. And like, good for them, especially the creme brulee part. I'm happy for them. I just have a quick question.
What else is there?
So he's working towards the debut of his new restaurant opening, but the old restaurant keeps having problems, and he says that he needs to relieve stress, and if he could just kill some shitbag drug dealer, he would feel better. And I was like, what do you mean by that? What do you mean? What do you mean by that? I thought you guys only killed serial killers and, you know, the occasional pedophile. What do you mean? He brings up that doctor again, who he really wants to kill, who he's brought up to her before, was at the opening. His restaurant debuts. And she's like, well, instead of having your brother choose a serial killer for us to take down for this year's competition, we just kill that guy ourselves and we do it as a couple. And he's like, yeah, I don't want to compete. And she's like, oh, are you afraid you'll lose? And he's like, yeah, I'm afraid I'll lose you. And I'm like, first of all, what do you mean? Like, why would that cause you guys to lose each other? And also, who was winning this competition? Because it stopped being a competition after Francis. And the way that he delivers this information, it comes across as if he, like, worrying about her is another burden that he has to take on. So she gets upset because he makes it sound like she's a burden. And then he's like, you're not a burden though. And then there's like a miscommunication issue. So they're supposed to meet up later. He goes to work at the restaurant that's having a bunch of mechanical problems. And David, remember the dishwasher guy, is there. And he tells David, hey, I'm going to go outside real quick. I'm going to check the breaker because there's an issue. And when he comes back inside, there's a guy with a gun to his head. And I assumed at this point it was the doctor, the serial killer guy that they were going to kill. This unidentified man says to him, well, if it isn't the butcher butcher of Boston, and your little orb weaver will be here soon, and you're gonna tell her that she has to leave or I'll kill her. Giving us a whole bad guy spiel. And I was wondering when a conflict would come up, and we're just doing it here in the last possible second. Excellent. We've had no buildup, and we just decided to go this direction. Cool, cool, cool. So in her POV, she's thinking about her insecurities again, and she walks into the restaurant, and he has to say to her what that guy that held a gun to his head told him to. He tells Sloan, go back to Raleigh, our relationship isn't working. Why this serial killer wants him to say this to her is beyond me, because there was a better way to do this, I think. Like, he could have just killed Rowan, but okay. And so to get her to leave, because she's like, I don't understand. He's like, you're a monster. She's like, I don't feel like a monster. I feel like a weapon. I'm just delivering justice for those who deserve it. And I'm like, oh, like the drug dealer he mentioned? Why do drug dealers need to die? What's wrong with y'all? That's somebody you feel like deserves to be murdered? Just some person? It better not be my drug dealer. You better not be killing the person I buy my weed from. That's not justice. That's rude. And so she demands to know why she's unlovable. And he's like, because you're a fucking psycho. That's why. And I'm like, oh my God, this could have been a good moment if we had actually led up to them having this thing of who's the worst person. But we didn't. It's just coming out of nowhere. We could have done, am I the worst? Am I exactly the kind of person that I've been saying I've been getting justice against? But no, we didn't do any of that. So this does not hit. He said some weird shit while yelling at her that like was a clue. And so after she's gone home, cried her eyes out, decided she's going to book a flight home, but she's going to take a scorching hot shower and get super cute and hot to go to fly out of Logan Airport. She's on the phone with Lark, and she realizes that something is wrong. She realizes that the things that he said to her, which had something to do with the dates that he was talking about, was like linked to the semen ice cream. I don't remember. That was the clue that something's wrong. So she calls Lachlan, the brother, and she's like, tell me everything you know about David Miller. And I was like, David Miller? Oh, David the dishwasher? Okay. She realizes that David has been faking being lobotomized, the book's words, and he's actually a bad guy. So then we switch over to Rowan's POV, and he's literally getting sliced up by on a mandolin by David, and David is then eating the skin that he slices off of Rowan. So David is like, Sloan killed her teacher, and she does terrible, depraved things, and I don't think she'd want to do terrible, depraved things with me. I'm gonna fake a recovery, and then she won't feel so bad about fucking a semi-lobotomized man. Those are the book's words, not mine. And I'm like, he could have just killed Rowan already. He didn't need to do this. Like, you could have killed Rowan and gotten away with it. You could have pretended to be this lobotomized man this whole time. You could have killed Rowan, gotten away with it, and then sucked up to Sloan. This entire last minute shoehorned in here idea is really stupid. And he had the time to make a good plan and didn't. Why? Because the author didn't want to. So he sticks a fucking corkscrew into Rowan. Sloan shows up, has the gun on David, and is like, oh my God, I know you. You're the Bayside serial killer or whatever. And he's like, yeah, I'm well familiar with your work too, and I know you're here to kill me. And she convinces David that she actually can't stand Rowan, and she's looking for a better suited serial killer partner. Rowan's about to cry. She hands him the gun in good faith, but when he takes it, she cuts him with a scalpel, and he's dead. Lachlan calls, and she's like, I need help with cleanup, and also Rowan needs new skin, because his skin got literally shaved off. Then she turns to Rowan, and she's like, I want to stab you. I'm not unlovable. Like, he called her unlovable. So they make up.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Good, that's the one.
And the next chapter is a blowjob.
Oh. No.
And honestly, this scene wasn't bad, but that's because she was in charge, and I'm very for women's rights. Like, she had fingers up in him. Good for her. He gets a tattoo covering the scar. She designed it, the scar from the skin with the slicing. Yeah. And then they finally kill that doctor that they were talking about killing, and he proposes during doing, eyeball stuff. He had the ring, and yeah, it's gross. But before that, they went to see Lachlan and made him promise to help Lark move into Boston. And the epilogue is from the POV of a guy named the Phantom who prays to God and hums a hymn that his mom used to sing. So he's a religious bitch. And this epilogue features his perspective of watching that final scene between Sloan, Rowan, and Lachlan, where they make Lachlan promise to help Lark move into Boston next weekend. And the Phantom is watching this conversation between the three of them where they make Lachlan promise help Lark and all that. And the Phantom says, Rowan Kane took my brother, and now I'm going to take his, the end. Oh, well, that was something. I sure think. It had no plot. It had no stakes. We threw in a bad guy at the last minute. I don't like the way we threw in the bad guy. I don't like the way that we talked about serial killers in this book. I don't think their morality makes any sense. I think the sex scenes were copy-paste, not literal, but like figurative copy-paste from other books. Other than that last blowjob scene, scene, I think all of them were pretty boring. The last blowjob scene was actually quite good. I thought that there was like one cute scene where he's like, you know, not cute, but like for dark romance, I don't hate the idea of him like stalking her to her house and then sending groceries and helping her cook them. But then that scene with the whole where they kill Harvey, where it's like they left that girl in the basement, they yelled at her, they go off to make out, and then they come back, they kill Harvey, and then they use his mom's mummified corpse. All of that was so fucking awful and stupid.
Terrible, and you ruined a fun thing.
I would give this a 0 on Goodreads if I could. I think it's really bad. I think it's really, really bad, really disappointing. There were opportunities here and not a single one of them were taken. It was just, how quickly can I write horniness and serial killers and done? No need to edit. Why would we do that? Again, if you like this book, I'm happy for you, but I think that it was really bad. However, because of the epilogue, I do think that the next one might be better. And because of that last sex scene, I mean, that's a plot, right? That's stakes, that's a plot. And because of the sex scene at the end, I do think that maybe the next one's sex scenes might not be terrible. But then again, if I go into it with a bingo and I get all the squares, I'm going to be disappointed. Do something new. Do something fun. Like, catch my attention. Have a plot. So 1 star from me. This, I think the only thing that made it tolerable at the end there was just, it's again in like graphic audio format. So it's listenable because it's like listening to people have a conversation. And by the end there, I just felt like I was eavesdropping on really stupid people. I can read the next one if you want. Let me know down below. If you made it this far, leave an axe emoji or a mummy. Whichever one you would prefer. All right, thanks so much for watching. Leave your comments and questions down below if you would like. Like and subscribe if you feel like it. Let me know what serial killer media you like. Think that is well done. Again, I do really like this duology. Really good, really interesting. So let me know what you're particularly in books. I know my sister the serial killer. I know that's pretty popular, and I'd like to read that soon. So all right, let me know. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.
Thank you for being a friend to my Therapy Bills patrons, and those are Alexander, Ashley H, Astrid P, Brittany Bobitney, Call Me Kodiak, Cami, Choco's Trash for Japanese Mysteries and Thrillers, Chris the Horror Therapist, DJ Rocktopus, Ellie, Emerald Dodge, Aaron with 2 E's, Eric, GalaxyBot, Jess, John E, Julie D, Kiari, Kaleno K, Casey McKenzie, Quinn, Lady Kittybug, Lady Chips, Lemon Jelly, Lex, Lily B, Max B, Mommy Zombie, Alice, Panoramic Demon, Peggy Lou who trolls Rachel with her Patreon name. We love you, Peggy. Rain, Reese, SJ, Sad Witch Bree, Samar, Scarlet, Shiny, SMK, Spoopy, Steph B, T Delegati, Urchin Audrey, White Raven 13, Zorvictia, and Chai Guy. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend. And last but not least, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my potato starch Marxist, Alejandra, Alicia, the bane of book banners. Hell yeah, Alicia. Althea, Amanda D, Amanda, Andy, Angelica, Artie the Ninth, Ava, Ballads and Bookends, Beck, Blake Lemon Pants, Blythe Lavender, Bookish Brainrot, Bookish by Jenna, Bree, Kate B, Caitlin, Cardinal Ginger, Carlin, Casper, Kate W, Catherine, Kathy, CJ, Clover's Mom, Cole, Colleen, Corwin, Cosmic, Darius, Danielle M, Darren, Desiree, Dilf Enthusiast, Dorothea, Ebby, Emily A, Emma, Other Emma, Aaron H, Ezra, Fiona, Francis, Gadarn, Garrett B, Goddess of Rot, Hannah C, Harpy Kuro, Ilianaka, JM Tennant, Jay is on Olympus, Jelly V, Jen Michelle, Genderqueer, Jenny G, Jessa Sue, Jill, Jojo Bookish, Kat, Catherine, Katie L, Kaylee C, Kayala, Kendra, KMTB, Laughing Cat Dog, Laura G, Lauren G, Lazarus Ray, Libraries of Scars, wow, Libraries of Scars, oh boy, Lindsay M, Lisa B, Lisa L, LP, Lou Siri, Lustful Octopus, Martin, Madison, Man-Eating Plant, Marcella, Marquita, Megan, Malara, May, Molly, James, Natalie, Never, Nicole G, Nicole R, Nimeska, Nyan Binary, Paige P, Penelope, Penny Chilling, Foxglove, Rachel B, Reader Rising, Reba, Rebecca, Rebecca R, Ronnie, Rosie Thorns, Rowan, Sequoia, Sadie, Sakialume, Sammy C, Sarah H, Sarah the Bear, Sarah Z, Shamed, Shannon, Sean, Sisette, Super Evil Sam, Talia, Tiana, Trashcan Teddy, Triple M, Tito Phoenix, and Writer A. Thank you all so much again for being here and for being a friend.